Okay. Oh my God, Casey. I just I just took a nap, like quick 2 hour nap, and I had the craziest dream. I'm here like trying to write it all down, and like more just keeps coming of what it was, and it was crazy. I went to sleep with this on my face yesterday, and it won't go away. So maybe I really need to work on my root chakra, especially now. Okay, so it starts out. Okay. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, so it starts out like I guess I'm in the medieval ages, like the weird medieval ages, and I'm with my dad, and we're walking through this festival. This is gonna be long, by the way. We're walking through this festival, this big medieval market thing that's going on, and like all the people are dressed in like their medieval clothes, but it's like more like Edwardian slash medieval, like really weird clothing. And I am the character of myself with my dad, except I'm like this blonde girl in like a dwindle almost. And I'm walking around with my dad, and I'm like really curious. Like I'm a guest. Oh, everyone has a tag on their collars that say what their occupation is. Like, are you a fish dealer? Are you a sailor? Are you a peddler? Like, you know. And and I had mine said guest of the market. And my dad, I don't know what my dad was. He was like either like a dark, shady, like black market guy or this high royalty guy who shouldn't have been at the market. So we had like guest of market, and he had like this mysterious black. I don't know. Um, and so anyway, our guide in the markets. Yeah, we'd never been to the markets before because it's like a blue collar kind of like low class thing. But I really wanted to go. Like spoiled princess wants to go to the market, but it wasn't me. But it was I don't know. And so our guide was this tall, like kind of aloof redhead boy in like a pot pie hat. No, and like a cap, like a little peasant. I am a peasant cat. And he was leading us around, but his clothes were nice. He was leading us around, and he led us. My father was like always on his guard, so I was always on my guard, like what's what I'm doing. And he led us to like this stall, and we went in, and there was this like Asian man and two other men there, and the boy was said, "This is him, sir." And my father like knew him and like said, "Hi, I meet you again." And he goes, "You brought your daughter with you?" And he goes, "Yes." She made herself. And I was like, "What's going on? This is crazy." And all of a sudden, Joanna was with us. So there's this redhead boy and then redhead girl, which was Joanna. So she was kind of just sitting on the chair. And so we sat down, and the snake man. I don't know why I called him Snake Man. I think he had a snake or he peddled snakes. He was this Asian guy, and he had this big flask, and he gave us some food, and we like sat down in the stall, and he had like his two bodyguards or hitmen or whatever with him. And then he offered us this snake wine. Oh yeah, this kind of like snake wine thing with pulp at the bottom. And my dad was like, "Don't drink it, like, don't drink it." He ate some of the food first, the snake man guy. So then we ate the food. So then he offered us the wine, and he was drinking milk. So we were like, "We're not gonna drink that if you're not drinking it." And so he gave it to me, and I like pretended to sip it, but I didn't actually. And I gave it to my dad, and he just straight up gave it back. And he was like, "Get your man to drink it." And so he said, "Okay." And he got his guy to drink it, and he drank it. And then this guy drank it, and he drank it. Like the snake man, who was like, "Watch, I'll drink it even." And he drank it. So then he gave it back to me, and I drank it. And he said, "Drink the milk of it, not the pulp." And I was like, "Okay." But I wanted to try the pulp because it was like snakes. So I kind of like tried the pulp a little bit. Then I drank the milk mostly, and it was good. It was good. It was delicious. And then he gave some to my dad, and then my dad gave some, or I gave some to Joanna. And then after a while, we found ourselves, the boy like was like, we have to go soon, it's gonna start, the festival's gonna start. It was like nighttime. And my dad was like, to the snake guy, they had some unfinished business, he would meet him later. And then I found myself getting kind of tired, and Joanna got like really tired, and my dad was getting tired, and the snake man was getting tired, and he was like, what was in the wine? What was in the wine? And he was like, it doesn't matter now. And the boy was like, we must go, we're gonna be late, sir. We must go, sir, please. And so my dad was like, oh, curses. And then all of a sudden the Golden Globes were playing, and Miley Cyrus was like singing some weird song as a nun with Chris Brown, and they kissed, and then it went back to this. I just watched a Miley Cyrus show in the middle of the stream, and it was weird. It was like Miley Cyrus trying to be Lady Gaga or something. It was weird. It was something that I didn't know was in my subconscious. Anyway, so we're rushing to get to the middle of this festival, and our guide is like really confused, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, this is weird. This is probably some like weird Freudian thing, but I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at his face, and he's taller, a little taller than me, but he's got really smooth, like, alabaster skin and like rosy cheeks, and his hair is so vibrant, and I'm staring at it, and I'm like, you're beautiful. Like, why do I think you're so beautiful? And then I look at him, and my dad is all suspicious of him, and he's like, who are you? And I'm looking at him, I'm like, yeah, who are you? And he laughs, and he takes off his hat. Because in the medieval ages, the only difference between a boy and a girl is their hair. So he takes off his hat, and this tumbling, long, flowing, beautiful hair comes out. And I'm like, okay, you're a woman. That would be the answer, the explanation. And she was beautiful, like these eyes and the skin, and like she was gorgeous, and no freckles or anything, just smooth. Like she kind of like looked angelic or something. I think I said that. I think I was like, you're like an angel. And she just started laughing, and she was like, all of a sudden her voice is, come, we must hurry. You know? And Joanna was still like kind of like drunk off this snake wine thing. So this woman Joanna was holding on to the boy first, like he was leading her around, and he tells me, like, hold on to her, like show her how to hold on to somebody. And I was like, okay. So I go to grab her hand, and I say, Joanna, come with me. And she goes, no, don't. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do anything. Just give me your hand. And she goes, okay. Like, why not? Why? And I was just like, because just drunk on snake wine. You have to be carried. So anyway, I'm carrying Joanna and I'm talking with this other like woman, and we're talking about some crazy, beautiful, like transient things. So not medieval things. And yeah, so we walk, and then we go to, there's like this huge square, and there's hundreds and hundreds of tables, and I sit down at one of these tables, and there's a big group of women, and they're all labeled sailors, and they're like really broady, like drinking, and it was awesome. And then there's right beside them on this big wooden table is like these really prissy like princesses or something. Our fathers are jewelry pendants. Ooh, we don't want to sit next to the sailors. And I guess one of them thought I was one of the sailors, so when I sat next to her, she was like, and like moved 2 seats down. And I was like, oh, perfect. Okay, so one for this amazing woman, beautiful angel thing, and one for Joanna. And I sat in between, and like Joanna was like, oh, and so I started like feeding her. There's these vases in the center of the table full of this soupy wine thing. And there's cups in the vases. And so I took out a cup, and they were plastic. Everyone else had glass, which I guess kept it hot, but they ran out of glass and we had plastic. So I was sipping Joanna's, no, I was getting Joanna to sip, this wine to feel better. And the whole while I was talking to this other woman. And then she was like, I can't believe that they're giving us plastic. Like, that's a trap. Like, and she went and she asked for a glass cup by one of the waitresses. And the waitress was like, we don't have any more. We don't have any more glass. And I was like, wait. And I reached into the vase, and 2 plastic cups down were a glass cup. And it was like that in every vase. So I got out 2 glass cups. And I was just like, well, look, here's a glass cup. So I had a glass cup. This angel woman had a glass cup. Joanna was already drinking from plastic, so she didn't care. And I was so hungry. I remember being so hungry. And oh yeah, and one of the sailor women, she was black and she was tall, and her name was Julie, and she was like, hey, hey. And I was like, oh, you remind me of someone from my old church. Anyway, I was so hungry, and I asked, like, when is the main course coming? And then we were all drinking the snake wine, and then somebody told us, you have to stop drinking the wine. You have to stop, or the soup, or whatever it was. And I was like, okay. And then I realized why. All the lights turned out, even though we were outside, and like this procession started, and I was like, okay, the man is coming. The reason we're having this festival is coming. Let's pay attention, and then the main course will follow. And I was like, great, okay, good. And this weird small parade started like marching through the tables, and it was really dark, so I couldn't make out who it was, but I could recognize this uncle, my uncle. But he's not I don't know who he is in real life this time. This time it's not Manu. It's not the same fat uncle who said he was gonna suck my eyes from my face. No, it's just like some tall, skinny, lovable looking, like, old man. He was really old. And there's 2 other old men with him, and one of them kind of looked like Stephen Hawking because he was in one of those chairs, which it was like a medieval version of Stephen Hawking's wheelchair, with all these buttons made of wood. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And they get up on stage, and my uncle stands up to the microphone and starts like making all these weird noises, like, and then he starts coughing, and I'm like, come on, uncle, you can do it, you can do it. And he starts coughing, and he goes like, I'm gonna die soon. And I went, that's what you think. I'm like, you're not gonna die, uncle. And then either Joanna or the other lady was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I'm not gonna let him die. Yeah, he's old and sick, but I'm not gonna let him die. And the redhead angel lady was like, I was just like, okay. And so my uncle tried again, and then he did it properly. He made all these sounds, which I assume were supposed to be like tractors or something like that. And he started simulating, like, it was like a football game. Like, what's that song? And he went, ladies and gentlemen, introducing the reason for the festivities, the great blah blah blah. I can't remember his name, but it was the Stephen Hawking guy, and he was all dark, and then a big light shone on him, and he spun around in his wheelchair, and everyone was like, woo! And I guess this is like his goodbye party or something. He was this monumental person, and he was leaving. Then, he started talking, and at first it was like, brothers and sisters, woo! It kind of reminded me of The Hobbit when Bilbo was saying his speech, and everyone was like, yeah, we know what you're talking about, Bilbo. And then he was like, I won't be with you any longer, and puts on the ring, and people start freaking out. Because what he did was like, my brothers, my sisters, and we're like, yo man, hey. And then he started talking, except then he started saying something about, he was supposed to be leaving, except he started saying something about, like, immortality or something like that. And then I realized that he was talking not out of his robot thing, because I was like, wow, his robot speech has great intonation, but he was speaking to the mind of some man that was hooked up to some machine and like talking for him. And then I was like, wow, that's fucked up. What? And then I realized that the man wasn't talking, and that he was staring at us and speaking to our heads. And the camera, if my vision is a camera, like zoomed up to his face, and he like stared right into my eyes. And then he started talking with his mouth, which I don't understand how he could do that because he was supposed to be paralyzed. And then he started talking about the mutants, and it just turned into like X-Men shit. He was just like, the mutants who are the survivors of war, disdained by society, blah 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 blah. We will rise again. We will rise immortal with our new machine bodies. Turned out he'd been working on like machine bodies, and his head started spinning, and the light got really like dark and green and eerie, and his head started like just spinning like that, like not this way, but like this way, and it grew and grew, and then came off his shoulders, and like these robot legs started coming out, and he started painting this picture with his words, but I could see it. It was manifesting as he was saying it, of this entire world full of like robot limbed people who with all these extraordinary abilities, and like he was pretty much saying like, we're gonna kill all the humans and we're all gonna be mutants, yay! And everyone was like, wow, we're just hungry. We just want to eat. And then like all the darkness died down, and he put his head back on, and it was back to my uncle, and then everyone started eating, and so I was really confused about what just happened, and I went up to my uncle, and I was like, so is he going, or? And my uncle was like really drained looking and like really scared and sad looking, and he said, no, this means he will never leave. And I didn't know what that meant, but I had the feeling that they were gonna do something bad to my uncle. And my uncle had this dog that was like half a dog and half a robot, and so the dog went woo and ran away, but only like the top half of him ran away, and the bottom, like, and there's like all these machine things in between, and then it showed him like the top half of him. It was still connected to the bottom half, but the bottom half was just moving slower. Or the back half was just moving slower. And all this machine organs and everything was inside of him. You could just see it because he'd split himself apart. And then, so he's walking, and the back of him is following him outside of the castle, and he's like growing really long legs and stuff to walk over rivers and shit. And then a part of him gets stuck, and he goes, and like, rewinds himself back. And it turns out like there's a cat who belonged to the Stephen Hawking guy, like hissing at him and holding him there. And so he like just punts the cat off the bridge. And then the cat lands and finds a few of the screws that she had, because she'd been scratching him. And she like picks up a screw in her mouth and like takes it to her master. Like that's the scene. And I'm like, oh no, what's gonna happen? They have a piece of my uncle's dog DNA. Now what's gonna happen? Oh, what's gonna happen to my uncle? Then all of a sudden, I'm in a school. Except, oh yeah, all of a sudden this is a movie that we're watching, and me and you are watching this movie, and the animation is. I've never seen anything animated like that. My brain made it up, and it's wicked, and I wish I could do it, and I wish I could show you so that you could do it. But I said that in my dream. I said, fuck, I wish I drew this. But it was like weird. Everyone had weird colored skin, like gray and blue and green. And like they only moved half of what they should to be talking. It was kind of like Animatrix / that show where it's like with that guy with no neck. And I don't know. And like Monster, I don't know. And so there's these people, we're in a classroom and we're watching this, and there's all these people and the sitting students in the modern day students, but like within this weird animation style. And so some of their faces are like, they're all just frozen, like, and then when they talk, they're like, oh no, I didn't do my homework. I'm gonna go pew, or like something like that. And so the teacher was like to the first guy, like they were writing a test, and the first guy was like, yeah, I didn't study, I declare my right to leave, and he left, and the other one made some bullshit excuse, and they were made to look really stupid, like they were drawn with huge tiny heads and big jaws and like no eyeballs, and they're both green, like a pale, sick kind of green. And then there was this girl who I assumed was you. she ended up being you. But she was writing her test, and she was like, or she was me, or she was a combination of us, I don't know. And she said, the teacher was like, you're not doing well on this test, are you? And she came up with some witty answer, and apparently she was a witty girl, she was always witty. And the teacher was like, just get out. And so she gets out, and I get up and walk into this world, and all of a sudden she was you. And I go and I sit at your desk, and I look at the test, and the teacher's like, oh, do you want to write one too? And I'm like, no, I'm just going to hand it in. And so I go and hand in your test. And the teacher, starts looking at it, and all of a sudden I'm the teacher looking at it. And then the teacher's the teacher. And she starts freaking out because apparently your answers are brilliant. Like, brilliant. Except the questions were really, really strange. And the teacher gave me a blank test so I could go do it. And there was a question that said, like, it was supposed to be a math test, but there were not math questions. Where is it? Oh, it's on the first page. Oh, and you're gonna freak out about where I end up. Okay, so the question was like, two men, one of them is from this village and one of them is from another neighboring village, which is apparently their rival villages. Fuck each other pretty much. They engage in intercourse on top of the city's like pipeline system, and they called it like Eden line. The pipeline system is called like the Eden Vault, and that means just where all the poop goes, the Eden Vault. And they break the Eden Vault, and the whole city gets sick, and then there's like and the rats eat the shit, and then start a black plague, pretty much. And like all this horrible shit happens from these two guys meeting up and sleeping with each other on the sewer system. And then the question is, a scale from 1 to 10, rated from 1 to 10, how negative was their romance? Negative was their romance. And it was a trick question because the answer to the question was, other people were working it out mathematically. Like somehow you can mathematically work out the scale of the disease with the scale of the pipeline, the damage to the pipeline, with the scale of the damage to the animals and the livestock, and the answer would be like 7 or something like that. But I wrote and you wrote the answer is 0 because there was no fault with the romance, but there was fault with the result of the romance, and the question was phrased like, how negative was the romance? And so the answer is the romance wasn't negative at all, but the result of the fucking was. And the teacher was like, wow, you're the only person that got the answer to that question, and like all these other weird questions like that. And so I started like writing this test, and then I got to a question that was really long, and I can't remember the question, but I heard you answering the question in my head, and I saw what you did, and you started freaking out, like you had like an epiphany or something, and then all of a sudden I was staring at a wall that had a mask on it, in like your dorm room or something, which is all of a sudden medieval again, in a big barn or some like wooden place, and there's this mask in the corner, and then I saw you writing on the wall like, this is crazy, this is fucked, and I started answering you like, yeah, I know, and like writing all around the face, and then you would answer me. It was weird. And then I zoomed like back into the test and handed the test in, and then all of a sudden I was in this church, this big, giant, like barn cathedral made of wood in the middle of like the top of a mountain, and this is where your room was. And so I handed it in to the teacher, who ended up being like a nun now, and there's just the church was just full of like all these crazy characters, and I had to shit, so I went to the bathroom so I could go take a poop. But then somebody came through the barn door, and so I decided I don't know if I used the bathroom or not, but I went out to go see who it was, and it was like I was outside and I was writing something, and then all these like metalheads, like we're in the medieval ages, and this group of three like metalheads come up to me, and I'm like, hi, and they're like, hey, and I'm like, what do you want? Like, what are you doing here? And they were looking for their friend Stefano or somebody, and I led them in the church. I was like, they're like, we're not gonna go in there. Yeah, I was writing like a spell or something about, and it was infused by Jesus or something like that. And they're like, I was like, you want to go? I was like, where are you going? And they're like, we're going in the church. And I was like, really? You want to go in there? And they're like, yeah, we're looking for our friend. And I was like, well, sure, you can go in. And they're like, you're gonna let us in? I'm like, it's not my, it's not my church. You can do whatever you want. So I opened the door and they went in, and um, what happened? They went in, and all of a sudden the church was full of like weird hipster kids, but like religious hipster kids, and these guys. And they told me their friend's name, and I was like, we looked around, they're like, do you know anyone who could go get him for us? And I was like, oh, I could go get him. I know him. So I looked around the corner to see if I could find him. And they're like, no, we know what he looks like, but we just don't know where he is. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know where he is either, but let's go look for him. And so then the dream ended with us looking for this guy. Yeah, that was my dream. Oh no, I forgot! No, I said that about the crazy machine world that this guy was. The crazy machines and just killing humans and like cutting off their arms and sticking machine parts in them. Anyway, this dream doesn't sound as cool as to say as it was to dream, but well, there it is. Is this half a fucking hour? Shit.